Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the second in our Wellbeing series, which is called Food and Immunity. Tonight, we are delighted to be able to welcome Lorna Rhodes, who is a highly respected nutritional therapist. Good evening, Lorna.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening, Fiona.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, well, as you will gather, Fiona is taking the place of my wife Gilla, who sadly is under the weather. Fiona, we're delighted to have you for a second week on the trot. Can you share with our viewers your connection to Lorna, perhaps, before we allow Lorna to introduce herself?
Yeah, my connection to Lorna is that we studied together at university, and so we go back quite a few years, and so we shared the same qualification as each other. We're both registered nutritional therapists.
Okay. So Lorna, you are a nutritional therapist, as well as being having had a highly successful career as a cookery writer, a food stylist for over 30 years, and over 18 cookery books with thousands of recipes. So clearly,
I've just spent
you're
my
into
life
food.
I've just spent my life in an apron. But yeah, I always had a passion for cooking right from a very early age, and influenced, I think, mostly from my grandmother, who was a fantastic cook. Although I must say I didn't always like everything she cooked, because she did very, very Ashkenazi food, which was all pulses and stuff, which as a youngster I didn't particularly like, but I've come to appreciate them as I've got older, and certainly include them in my repertoire of dishes. And so I trained as a home economist and went straight into the food industry. And my first job as a home economist was with Cadbury's. So I ate a lot of chocolate a long time ago. A lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I was developing recipes and honing my skills, preparing food to be photographed. And then after I went freelance, a few years later, I started writing cookery books. But I've also written many, many recipes for blue chip companies. And with, websites becoming very popular, the companies needed recipes for websites, as well as for maybe back of pack recipes and promotional material. So yeah, I've cooked a lot in my life, and I've always wanted to convey the idea of eating healthily, because you are what you eat. We've heard that so many times before, but I'm a great believer that our health depends on our nutrition. And my last book was on low GI eating, and I thought, if I'm going to be writing a book on a healthy eating aspect, I really need a qualification. So I thought, I really need a qualification. And then I thought, well, I'll become a nutritional therapist. So, of course, food is very important as a therapist, but the biggest shock I think I've had is my clinical practice, because I have a lot of clients that come to me with a myriad of health conditions that are not being resolved by conventional medicine. And I'm a great believer in an integrative approach. In other words, that we can work alongside conventional medicine. So while drugs and many procedures can have huge benefits, I feel that if the person can support themselves with good nutrition, we get better outcomes. And then, of course, there are people who come to me that just want to achieve optimal health, and they need putting on the right track, because no matter how healthily we all think we eat, there's a lot of room for improvement. Yes. And it's very easy to slip down the slippery slope of indulgence that may not be beneficial for our health.
Okay, I hear. So hopefully we will learn this evening from Lorna how to, maybe we can have a bit of indulgence with healthy eating. Is that possible?
Totally. It's about enjoying the right foods and making the right choices.
Okay, fantastic. Fiona, do you want to start us off with one of your questions.
Yes. Thank you, Lorna. That was really interesting. And so the talk today is obviously about immunity, and especially as we're in winter now, and with everything that's going on at the moment with COVID-19. And so one of the questions we have got for you is, what is the immune system and why is it important for good health? And how do you know if you have a low immunity?
Okay, well, we haven't got time to do a big biology 101 on the immune system. And do you remember, Fiona, when we were studying, we had an essay to write and we were tearing our hair out over it because it is incredibly complex.
I never forget. I never have forgotten that essay, ever.
Me neither. Anyway, we know that if you have a strong immune system, it's going to protect us from viruses, pathogenic bacteria, parasites, and all sorts of other nasties that we can get into the body. So it's we can't see a lot of these things that can attack us. And one of the first port of calls actually is our stomach. So we ingest a lot of things through the mouth, and our stomach contains something called stomach acid. And a lot of people think they've got too much stomach acid when they get acid reflux, but actually, as we get older, we produce less stomach acid. And this stomach acid is incredibly important, not just for digesting our food, but it kills pathogenic bacteria. So if you're not killing them off, where are they going at the next port of call? They're going down into the gut, and they can cause a lot of problems, including inflammation. So as well as having general digestive problems like indigestion, it's the inflammation in the gut that affects the gut wall. And this then has an impact on our immune system because our immune system resides just behind the gut lining. So obviously, if you've got anything going on in the gut, an imbalance of the good and the bad bacteria, your immune system is going to be affected. So this is why I will be talking about how to support our immune system with what we eat, because certainly if we're eating foods that are not great for us, that can cause inflammation, like junk food, I'm not suggesting anyone here tonight eats junk food, but the younger generation feel that they're invincible and will eat junk food, but they don't realize the damage they're doing that could manifest itself later on in life. So while we are beginning to understand how essential it is for our health and survival, you may ask yourself, well, how do I know if my immune system isn't very strong? Well, how many colds do you get a year? Do you get one, two, or many? And do you get colds easily from other people? Do you suffer from a chronic infection? Surprising number of people do. And they're on course after course of antibiotics. And of course, the antibiotics are very destructive to the good bacteria that are protective within the gut. And unfortunately, the doctors forget to tell people to take some probiotics to get that gut rebalanced. So, in fact, the overuse of antibiotics has led to a lot of problems with people's immune system. And I have to say, one of the big problems we're now facing is while chronic diseases can be treated very well, if you have a compromised immune system for some time, it can then lead to you developing an autoimmune condition, because eventually the immune system just gets exhausted and turns on our own cells. And in fact, the rise in autoimmune conditions is actually really very worrying. I mean, I think we all know somebody who's perhaps got rheumatoid arthritis, perhaps multiple sclerosis, which is a devastating illness to have. And then there's a lot of illnesses like, Fiona, eczema and psoriasis. This all reflects on the state of the immune system, because when you trigger your immune system with a reaction, it can exacerbate an existing condition or, in fact, create an immune system. So anybody with asthma, that again, it is an autoimmune condition. And there are over 80 different conditions like that. So, you know, it is very, very important that we try and look after our immune system. And sometimes my clients will say to me that they get, when they feel run down or stressed, their lymph glands just here feel a bit swollen. And that's
I get that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
That just goes to show your immune system is not
So
very happy.
it shows my immune system is run down. Is that right?
It is. It is.
Right.
So that when I come to the food part and the supplements, you might get some hints and tips how to support it then. So
Okay.
so having talked about what's going on in the gut, that is in fact an incredibly big subject, but it is something that we can all do to look after a little bit better than we are doing, I think. So I'm going to cover very quickly some strategies, unless you have another question at the moment. Sorry, Fiona, did you?
No, the strategies are actually what I was going to ask you about what we can do. So yeah, fire away.
Of course. Well, there are many strategies, and I've already mentioned it briefly about avoiding foods that I would call junk, but then a diet high in sugar and processed food. And sugar is a really big problem because we've also got a rise in type 2 diabetes, and that's created by blood sugar imbalance and far too much sugar in the diet. And it's not just sugar per se, but there's a lot of hidden sugars in foods, and a diet high in carbohydrates, in fact, because in fact carbohydrates convert into glucose in the body. So, you know, really cut down on the processed foods and watch the sugar intake. I would say that to everybody. It's just, for me, it's just a natural thing, which I think I've always done. But again, I did say about the indulgences, and they often are sugary foods. I mean, I know we all like a piece of cake, but the trouble is one piece can lead to another, and the biscuits.
I don't like one piece of cake.
No, you like two.
I like three. Three.
So it is about
I got to tell you an interesting thing. Just as an aside, if we think about smoking, right? I think our youngsters grow up with an education, understanding that there are dangers involved in smoking, and it's pretty much a taboo by most of our youngsters.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this particular area, I think that if we asked our youngsters, despite going through, you know, a good education, they wouldn't have a clue. Is that your experience, that, you know, most people are clueless when it comes to this area, and therefore they grow up and get into bad habits?
I think that's so true. I mean, I despair when I watch the children get off the school bus where I live and go into the shop and come out with all the sweeties.
Yeah.
And the parents haven't got a clue, because these kids have got their own pocket money. And by the time they've got home, they've eaten the lot, you know, because they walk home, right? And they're munching away. And it's very sad to see them first thing in the morning go in and be buying that kind of food instead of having breakfast. And then they get on the school bus. And I'm sure the parents have no idea what's going on.
No.
So, I mean, the education has to start in school. I know my granddaughter is very clued up about sugar and healthy eating, but then her mum is too, and she's heard a lot from me. But it's a very difficult message to get across, because there's so much temptation surrounding us when we go shopping and watch what we see on TV, and then what one kid does, they all want to do.
I think it's also the easy options, but we'll come back to it afterwards. I think it's what the easy options for kids are.
There's so much to say. There's so much to say about it. So
it all starts. It all starts with weaning and what you introduce to your children when they go on to soft foods, and what you have in the home and what you give children. Because I know when I was little, we were given sweets as a reward, but the thing is, sometimes parents just give their children junk food to keep them quiet, because they're whinging or they're being a bit annoying. I mean, I despair when I go around the supermarket, see little children in the trolleys eating junk food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big challenge.
It's a huge challenge. But I hope I'm speaking to a very well-educated audience. I assume I am. So it's not difficult to buy a magazine or a book with really good information in, and just discuss it with the family. Discuss it round the family table when you're eating a meal about the values of the food that you're eating, and appreciating the good foods, and explaining that yes, we all like a treat, but the bad foods really shouldn't play a big part in our diets.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
absolutely
perfect, but
okay.
But we can all strive, to eat a lot healthier.
You are what you eat.
I'm watching what you're eating.
There's a question that's come in before we go forward. There's a question for you, Lorna.
Yes.
For good gut health, is kefir starter better than a kefir tablet supplement?
I would say so. So I make my kefir with water because I don't drink dairy. I'm lactose intolerant, and I just can't bear milky drinks anyway. So yes, kefir, kombucha, sauerkraut, any fermented foods, they do support the good bacteria. But beware of products in the supermarket. They do tend to have a lot of sugar in them. Yeah, and even fruit juice that you buy in a carton, it's just full of sugar. Absolutely full of sugar. I don't have fruit juice in my house.
I should hope not. Fiona,
yes.
Fiona, give us the next question.
Okay, being that we're in the Northern Hemisphere, I think you know what I'm going to ask you about vitamin D.
I am.
At this time of year, and with again, I'm going to refer to the dreaded COVID, that we hear that vitamin D can actually help us to raise our immunity. I'd like to know, can vitamin D help with our immunity?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of scientific evidence to support that. I'm sorry that the government were not looking at it at the beginning of COVID, but they've seemed to have got the message now. And because they have found those people that have really suffered badly on respirators, their vitamin D levels have been rock bottom. So I get all my clients to try and get tested. If the GP won't do it at the moment, you can buy a test online. Now, here's the thing: if you get an NHS test and it comes in at about 50 or 55, your doctor will say you're okay. But in my book, it's not okay. It's okay. It's not optimal. I want to see my clients around 100 to 120, and I've yet to have a client testing and coming out at that. I do my own. I did it a few weeks ago, and I was 120. So I check my own, and the other thing I have found, I've got quite a number of Indian or Caribbean clients because of where I live, near High Wycombe, and they've all got exceptionally low vitamin D because of the dark skin, because they can't make as much from the sunshine. So that's really interesting point. But as Fiona, you said, we live in the Northern Hemisphere. There's not much sun at this time of the year. And there aren't many foods that actually contain vitamin D. Sardines, yes. Egg yolk, yes. Butter and fermented cod liver oil. So those aren't kind of the foods that we're going to be eating every day. And therefore, I would always suggest supplements. So the government have suggested 400 IUs. I think 1,000 is quite safe to take. Wow. If you buy a very good brand of a multi-vitamin and mineral, it'll probably have 1,000 international units in it. So I was going to mention supplements a bit later on, but I would always recommend getting tested. Then once I know someone's baseline, I know how much to supplement. So if someone is around about 20, I'd be putting in maybe 5,000. Now, a GP is not likely to do that. Although I did have one client, and the GP gave the client, I think it was a weekly or maybe a monthly, 2,000 international units. But you wouldn't do that on your own. This is, you know, under medical supervision if it was incredibly low. So, as I say, 1,000 is good. If you're a bit low, maybe 2,000, certainly throughout the winter months. And then you can have a very low dose throughout the year if you're not inclined to go in the sunshine very often. And the other thing, as you know, Fiona, people go out in the sun, enjoy the sun, use sunscreen, and that's blocking the benefits of natural sunlight. And even if there's a bit of sun at this time of the year, the only bit of your body that's exposed is your face, because we've got thick winter coats on. So compared to the summer when sleeveless or shorts, you know, we're getting the benefit. And of course, a lot of us have missed out on summer holidays this year.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So yes, I would say definitely it's very, very important to get tested and to supplement. Yeah. Okay,
thank you for that, Lorna. Brilliant. What kind of foods help support the immune system?
Okay, well, there are very many. I did want to add a few other things, but maybe at the end I'll talk about a few lifestyle points that actually help with the immune system, because when Fiona and I were training, we learned that it's not just food. We have a very holistic approach to our clients' health. And we don't just talk about the diet, we talk about sleep, exercise, movement. And sleep is very, very important. I will just cover this now. Sleep is incredibly important for our immune system, because while we're asleep, our body is constantly repairing itself. And also we have a hormone called melatonin. And melatonin works in mysterious ways. But one of them is it produces antioxidants and it's anti-inflammatory. So this is ways of supporting your immune system. What we're looking for is, with food, foods that are going to support us with the antioxidant, anti-inflammatory components. And this is how we keep our immune system strong. So there are some foods that are very beneficial. But the first thing I would like to say, and I'm a bit of a nag about this, is about eating the rainbow. I don't know if you've heard of that expression. So it's
heard about it last week.
You ate a rainbow last week?
No, we heard from Fiona about different colours.
So right. So I'm just quickly, for those that didn't join last week, it's about eating a wide range of fruits and veg, all the colours of the rainbow, and all those colours represent compounds called polyphenols in the fruit and veg that are antioxidants. So there's lots of different names: carotenoids, flavonoids, and anthocyanins. So the stronger the colour, the more there are. And I think a lot of us, a lot of people eat the same kind of things or buy the same kind of fruits and veg every week. And I encourage people to be a bit more adventurous. And it's no use saying, I don't think I like things. I always say, try it once. So we are very blessed with what we can buy in the shops.
I agree.
We are very blessed. We don't know how lucky we are. And so we should try and be a bit more adventurous. And if you're not sure, you know, how to cook an aubergine, there's tons of recipes on the internet to try, or buy one of my cookery books, although I'm not here to promote those.
That's a good plug there, Lorna.
Which cookery book would you recommend? Seriously. As a beginner.
Oh, my last one, which was Learn to Cook Low GI.
Oh, I've got that, Lorna. I didn't even know you wrote it. It was bizarre. I picked it up today and I just thought, I was talking to a client and I just thought, oh my God, Lorna wrote that. Didn't even know you wrote it. So,
wow.
Brilliant book.
The recipes are very, very easy to follow. Yeah. I mean, the clue's in the title, Learn. And I've had a very good feedback from people who say, I'm not a very good cook, but at least I could follow your recipes and they worked. And I'm thinking, Of course they worked. I always test and test again. But I mean, just find the simplest recipe with some ingredients. Maybe kohlrabi, you've never had that. That's supposed to be really good for us. And the purple vegetables, instead of always buying green cabbage, buy red cabbage. And I love putting on the mandolin and having it finely shredded. And I just almost used it as a condiment, a bit like you would with sauerkraut. So if you put a little tiny bit of salt and some lime juice and leave it for 20 minutes, it softens it slightly, and it's absolutely gorgeous, especially if you build a nice bowl of salad for lunch. And you can get plenty of colour and variety if you have time to do that. The other thing I always encourage my clients to do is when they say they're not very keen on veggies, is make soup and make more soup. So it's great to bake in batches, always have some in the freezer. So if you're busy, you've always got a wholesome meal you can have.
And I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there because I as a guy, I was always told, firstly, I love soups, but I was always told that when you put things in the soup and you blend it, all the goodness seems to go out. It's not the same as having it fresh. Is that true or not true?
No, not at all.
Just as good in the soup?
Totally. Where would it go to?
I think if you boil it down, you keep boiling
yes.
and boiling it, then you're going to obviously get rid of
Yeah.
the. But there aren't there, Lorna? There are some foods that if you cook, it brings out more of the nutrients.
Yes, and it's easier to digest. So, you know, somebody who's maybe just had some surgery, no appetite, what's the best thing to give them is some soup. And
what are the vegetables, Lorna, that you can cook and it actually brings out more of the vitamins? Carrots
and butternut squash.
Okay.
And beetroot soup is amazing. I mean, beetroot is so good for your heart as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, as long as you don't put it in the oven. I remember you saying to me, if you put it in the oven, you bring out more sugar.
Well, it does concentrate the flavors, but it tastes wonderful. I'd rather people eat it and it tastes delicious than not eat it at all.
Last week.
The other thing talking about soup is chicken soup. And who doesn't know how to make proper chicken soup? And, you know, even non-Jewish people know that it's called Jewish penicillin. And because all those lovely minerals that come out of the bones and the cartilage is fantastic for our gut, our immune system.
Really? So it's not a myth. It's true.
It's totally true. Yes.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And so again, if someone's not feeling well, just give them a mug of chicken broth.
Chicken soup.
And it's hilarious how all these clean eating and Instagrammy girlies are all talking about broth.
Oh, boys.
We've been making it for generations.
Lorna, you've mentioned that chicken soup, a Jewish food, is good for you. Now, last week, I tried to persuade Fiona that cholent was good for you. I'm not going to tell you her answer.
Face. You said on your face. You?
So the question I have for you is, can you name some of the traditional foods that Jews may like that would be good and some that are bad? 3 good, 3 bad.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, good, chrein, because that's beetroot.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Chicken soup.
Yeah.
Fish. I mean, yeah, we eat a lot of fish, don't we, as a rule?
Chopped herring.
Chopped herring, that's good because it's got omega-3 in herrings, and it is a good way of eating herring because most people are not very good at cooking the fish, the fresh fish of herring. But I know a lot of Jewish people that don't eat a lot of meat these days and eat a lot of fish. And fish is. But I was going to mention this. I was coming on to it about the omega-3s because they're anti-inflammatory, and we find those particularly in oily fish. So salmon at least once a week, if not twice.
Okay, and the new Jewish food is sushi. So at every simcha they have sushi. Is sushi something? Is sushi? I don't know if Moses came down the mountain with it, but is it good for us or not? Sushi.
Well, my only problem with sushi is it's quite high in carbs and it's white rice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of healthy and not healthy. It depends. It depends what state you're in. I mean, if you want to lose weight, then you might think sushi is very healthy, but actually you're just taking a load of carbohydrate. And really, for the amount of vegetables or little bits of fish on top, it's kind of a bit imbalanced in my book.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And 3 baddies. You said 1, which is sushi.
Well, we're coming up to Chanukah, latkes and donuts.
Oh, you just ruined my whole.
I'm so sorry.
Fiona, I said you said I could trust Lorna. Okay, I love donuts.
You asked for the truth. You asked for my
caramel donuts.
Anyway,
I mean, donuts healthy, Lorna.
Don't be silly. No, they're fried and they're full of sugar.
Okay.
All right.
Chulent is good or bad?
It's middling. Yeah.
Middling. Okay.
Yeah, middling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on. I'm just conscious of the time.
Yes, I know. I have got tons more to talk about.
Okay.
So,
can we move on to supplements just so that we make sure we get it in?
Okay. I just would like to quickly. I've talked a lot about fruit and veg, but what we're looking for are foods that contain vitamins C, E, A, and D, and zinc and selenium. And zinc is very, very important for our immune system. And you know, it's really interesting with COVID. One of the symptoms of having COVID is loss of taste.
Yes.
Yes, that's zinc deficiency.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Wow, wow. So you mean like hummus would be a zinky food, right? Chickpeas.
Wait, one
That's
moment.
what Fiona taught me.
Hummus, zinc, pumpkin seeds are really
pumpkin
great.
Seeds, yes.
Lamb and beef, as long as it's grass-fed. Beans, so we're talking pulses. Haddock and egg yolk, sesame seeds, lentils. And again, I'm always encouraging people to eat more pulses because, you know, move more into a plant-based diet. I'm not saying give up meat, but just eat more veggies and pulses.
Okay.
Cashew nuts, spinach, garlic. Garlic's very healing, antibacterial. And we know that zinc can prevent pneumonia. So there's another connection with the whole COVID crisis. People who get pneumonia, zinc deficient and vitamin B deficient. So vitamin C, well, that's a very powerful antioxidant, and that boosts the immune system. And that's another thing we can all take as a supplement during the winter. It doesn't do us any harm. And if you do have a cold, it will lessen the length of the cold. So lots of fruit and veg. Kiwi fruit are very high in vitamin C. Peppers, berries, papaya, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, spinach, tomatoes, and watercress. And again, watercress makes a fabulous soup. So vitamin E, I like to get that from food if possible. And if you like avocados, eat half an avocado every day to get a natural form of vitamin E. And butternut squash is a good source, as dairy and eggs and salmon are. So I always say food first. Now, the interesting thing about vitamin A, it's very supportive of the gut. It helps to keep the integrity of the gut lining. So we have a problem with vegetarians who rely on beta carotene from yellow and orange foods for their vitamin A, which it does. Beta carotene does convert in the body, but not for everybody. So the best sources of vitamin A are, again, meat and eggs. And I've talked about vitamin E. Omega-3s I have briefly talked about, eating more fish, oily fish in particular. And one of the hints and tips I give is always keep cans of fish in the cupboard, because they make a great salad at lunchtime or a small meal. Canned sardines are so nutritious. And of course, the little bones in sardines have calcium in, which is good for our bones. And then selenium, you may not have heard of. This is an antioxidant. And most people are deficient in that because essentially we would get selenium from our vegetables, but unfortunately the way the ground has been used to grow vegetables is now mineral deficient. It's pretty exhausted with intensive farming and the use of pesticides and fertilizers. And so a tip here is to eat 3 Brazil nuts every day, and you'll get your daily amount of selenium. And turkey and chicken are good sources as well, as are oats and sunflower seeds. So if you're looking as a replacement for sugary snacks, I would recommend eating nuts and seeds.
Okay. I'm going to just take a couple of questions because we've got a few that are coming in. What do you think of the diet recommendations concerned with microbiome, for example, having full-fat food, dark chocolate and red wine, for example?
Yes, but not in great quantities.
Okay.
Yes.
Not in great quantities. Okay.
So, I say yes, have a couple of squares of dark chocolate every day. If you like red wine is got some antioxidants in, but again, be very careful. Don't go crazy, which a lot of people have done in lockdown. And even some of my clients have admitted to me that they've been drinking far, far more than they do normally.
Right.
Because they think it's relieving the stress which we're all feeling. We're all feeling stress, and actually, stress has a huge, huge impact on the gut and the immune system.
Right. Fair enough. Next question: how many eggs a day, and what about cholesterol?
Okay, well, I'm afraid that the association between eating eggs and cholesterol is a bit of a myth. I would say you could eat certainly 1 egg a day, and that would make it 7 eggs a week. Is quite safe. So here's the thing about the cholesterol. Our livers make cholesterol, right? And it makes about 75% of the cholesterol in the body, because basically we need cholesterol to live. If we didn't have any cholesterol, our cells would collapse and we'd die, because our cell wall contains cholesterol, and we need it for the integrity of the cell wall. And we need cholesterol to make hormones. So if your cholesterol is very, very low, you might have a real problem with hormones and hormone balance. Therefore, the dietary influence is relevant, but I wouldn't get hung up about the eggs, because the fat in the eggs, the saturated fat in the eggs, is actually emulsified with the lecithin in the eggs. So it actually isn't dangerous. The dangerous thing about cholesterol is saturated fat.
Saturated
so
fat.
That's what we have to watch.
That's what we need to avoid. Okay.
Yes. Not avoid completely, but just moderate and keep it low.
Yeah. Nuts and seeds can affect the bowel. What alternatives for those with bowel disorders and IBS?
Very good point. Yes, some people can't digest nuts and seeds, although you could try grinding them and stirring them into porridge, and that will add some extra protein for breakfast, because a lot of people are still eating processed cereals for breakfast, and that can affect blood sugar balance and cause lots of problems. So we all need some protein at breakfast time to keep us satisfied, so we don't get hungry mid-morning and reach for the biscuits. So yes, it depends what kind of IBS symptoms or digestive problems people have got. I would certainly be very careful with seeds if you've got diverticular disease, which is very prevalent in the over 60s. I'm surprised how many of my clients, 60s, 70s, have been diagnosed with that.
Right.
But we need to keep our bowels regular, and the way to do that is to increase the intake of fruits and veg. And guess what? Our good bacteria they like the fiber from fruit and veg. That's what they thrive on, and that's how they keep the diversity of the species and the quantity.
Fascinating.
So that's why
I've learned. I think we've all learned
about the fruit and veg.
No, we've all learned so much. I think one of the final questions is that we have heard about supplements.
Yes.
Are you happy with people, that having multivitamins and living on, living on a multivitamin?
Not living on them.
In other words, they have it on a, they have it year to year.
Yes, I recommend everybody has a multi, because it's totally impossible to get all the nutrients from our foods, simply because a lot of our foods are nutrient deficient. Even though they look good, they're not as high in antioxidants and vitamins and minerals that 50 years ago. And also
a good multi, Lorna, because a lot of the multis have bad binders in them. That's quite important, isn't it, to actually say that? Yeah.
What is a good multi? What's a good multi?
Buy the best you can afford. Avoid anything that's really being sold in the supermarket that's cheap, because if you look at what's in it, it's not going to make any difference, to be honest.
Okay.
So I use what I call practitioner quality, and yeah, I would do that. I would recommend. And if it's a good product, can I mention some names of brands?
Of course.
Okay, BioCare do very good. NutriAdvance, Lambert's, and Cytoplan. Those are some of my favourite ones, because they're very comprehensive, and that you can buy them from their websites online. Some of them you may not find in a health food shop, but Solgar, I know good health food shops tend to have Lambert's, Solgar, and I think sometimes I've seen BioCare. So yes, definitely that. But I do always say food first, then a probiotic won't go amiss. That will, a general multi-strain, preferably with something like 8 strains, is always very good. But that is a very general thing, because if someone has got a digestive condition, I would be doing functional testing and find out what imbalances they have, and then I know precisely what kind of strains they're deficient in. So this is when it gets really complex and deep nutrition and deep therapy. But some people need it because, you know, their digestive systems are not good, and they haven't been for some time. But people put up with a lot of things. So yes, eat fermented foods. They will nourish our gut bacteria. And what else can I say about extra vitamin C? I think I've already mentioned that. There is one other thing which I feel is the icing on the cake for the immune system at this time of the year, and it's something called beta glucans. Now, we find those naturally in oats and mushrooms, but for anybody who has asthma or is prone to bronchitis in the winter, beta glucans might help them. I advised a cousin of mine who has it really badly, and she hasn't had it yet this year. She's been taking beta glucans.
Interesting. Final question we've got from the audience. Is avocado high in fat?
It is, but they're good fats. So I encourage people to eat good fats, like from avocado and olive oil, and a very moderate intake of butter. So butter is demonized in some people's minds, but actually it contains something called butyric acid, and that's very, very good for the gut as well. So, and please avoid margarine and hard fats. I know Mary Berry still uses hard margarine for baking.
She does, doesn't she? Yeah.
No, please don't do that. In fact, a lot of Jewish bakers make cakes with olive oil, or which is great.
Which is healthy. Yeah.
Cake recipes to use olive oil.
Okay.
Rather than hard fats.
Absolutely fascinating. I want to thank but unfortunately we are way over time. The questions have been flooding in, and you have been exceptionally well received both on Facebook and on YouTube. And I want to thank, on the community's behalf, on Facebook's behalf, on YouTube's behalf, Lorna, thank you so much for informing us, inspiring us, and hopefully bringing about a paradigm shift in the way that we think and the way that we behave in terms of food and our daily routine. It does take, as Fiona always says, a bit of preparation, but you know, I'm sure that in the long term we will all reap the rewards.
Totally. Can I just finish about this thing that's been around about mindfulness? And it is, it is focusing in on, and thinking about what is on your plate. I mean, if we say grace before meals, we're thanking, and I think it's a lovely thing to do grace before meals, because it does. It's like mindfulness. It's actually thanking us, thanking it that, you know, that we have got this wonderful food that we can eat, and at the end of the day, we're free to make our own choices. So I don't understand anybody who chooses to buy what I call poor food. Now, if anybody feels that they would like to contact me, I am doing consultations online. You can go to my website. I don't know if it was on the flyer. So it's,
I don't think it was. If you can say the details now, and then also let us have them, and then we can pass them on if anyone doesn't write it.
My website is nutritiondynamics.co.uk, and I offer people a free 20-minute telephone call if they want to discover whether I can help them. I'm helping a lot of people get better health. Very difficult to be optimally healthy, but we can all have better health, and hopefully get through the winter without getting ill.
Let's hope so.
I wish everybody good health and enjoy.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you, Lorna, so much. Thank you, Fiona, for joining us this evening. Friends, it's been an incredible evening, an evening in which we have enriched, hopefully, our understanding and deepened our knowledge when it comes to the way that we live. You are what you eat, and we take a holistic approach to life. So next week, we are moving away from the skin, away from the food, and we are moving on to what was already touched on by Lorna, which is exercise.
Yeah.
So everyone next week should come in their tracksuits. We're looking forward to having Matt Simmons, a personal trainer, who is going, despite COVID, to get us into shape and explain to us why exercise is exceptionally important, as we've already touched on in the last two sessions. So that's it from us this evening. We're out of time, but I want to thank once again Fiona for stepping in the last minute, and to Lorna for giving us such a phenomenal presentation. On behalf of everyone, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. Please God, we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Thank you, everyone. Take care. All the very best. Bye.